doing something at the Viper Room and then trying to come here the next day. The Viper Room is just notorious. Like, even when you're in the building, it just feels like, ugh.
It is notorious.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the only way I'd ever been in there was through that, the door on the side street there.
Uh-huh.
And, but they had all the cameras out and took me around I'd never come in through the door on Sunset before, even recognize the place.
No, I've never been through that door either.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've only been there once. I was there for a comedy show. It just feels weird. There's certain buildings that just have bizarre history.
Yeah, well, Shooter was telling me last night, man, River Phoenix died on the sidewalk right out that door I didn't know that. I thought it was in front of the whiskey for some reason.
No, it was the Viper Room.
I never realized that.
Yeah. It's a fucked up place. Hey, man, nice to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine, Joe. Thanks
I love your music.
Really?
Yeah. Well, my friend Jake turned me on to you. Your music is like, you've lived a life. You can't fake that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? There's something about certain dudes' voices and songs. You're like, all right, that guy's done some living. You can't create that with AI.
Right?
They're gonna try.
Everybody, it's crazy. We're kind of reaching singularity,
Yeah.
where nobody can tell the difference.
I know. I think we're right about there. There was a new one that just got released today. Did you hear the new one today? It's even better than the Google one. That was insane. It was released last week. Yeah, it's weird.
What are you talking about?
Some new AI engine that does video. I'll send it to you, Jamie. It's pretty incredible. The way they're able to make stuff now, where it looks exactly like real human beings. Like it doesn't look
difference.
fake even a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you, Jamie. It's called Byte Dance. So is that the China one?
Oh, that's the company.
Oh, okay.
ByteDance is the company that owns like TikTok and stuff.
Oh, yeah, China.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. This is their new AI. So this is all fake people, all done by computers, indistinguishable. It's like, it's very strange. You got it?
Yeah.
Throw that up. Give me some sound. You got to click on it. This is all fake. I mean, what the fuck, man? We are living in the weirdest time ever, Charlie Crockett.
Oh, man, you're right.
This is the weirdest time ever to be alive because we're so close to not being able to tell what's real and what's fake. We're so close. I mean, we're essentially right there with video, and then eventually it's going to move into some sort of perception. It's going to be feel. You're going to be able to put a helmet on and whoosh, go into some bizarre world.
And you can't stop it.
You can't stop it.
It's coming.
It's coming. And the people that are working on it in America, like, we have to, because China's working on it. I'm like, okay, I guess that's just what we're doing.
Space race, even if it's just a show.
Yeah, it's essentially the Manhattan Project for artificial intelligence. There's a race around the world.
Joe, did we go to the moon?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. It makes you sound fucking completely insane to say it, but
I lost a lot of friends when I was younger when I started talking like that.
I did too. I gained a lot of friends too, though. I gained a lot of listen, man, I've talked to scientists that don't want to talk about it publicly.
Yeah.
Scientists.
Well, see, you know what I figured? I figured that would be the one time in the history of civilization that human beings got to a new place and said, nah, I'm good, and turned around. And
Exactly.
I don't want to look around there anymore.
Well, Bart Sabrell, he's this researcher that's been doing these documentaries on the moon landing, and he's been saying it's fake since, like, I met him sometime in the early 2000s, I believe, and he put out this this documentary called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon," and he's got a great quote. And he says, "There's not a single thing that's not easier, faster, and cheaper to reproduce today from 1969 except the moon landing." It's the one thing. Well, and everybody go, "Oh, but they spent so much money. Why would they spend the money on that again?" Well, why would they spend money on all the things they spend money on? Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. The moon has trillions of dollars in rare minerals on it. There's all sorts of shit on the moon that would be very beneficial to society. And it was always going to be that we're going to have a base on the moon and they were going to use that to go to other places. I don't think so. I mean, if you look at the way they filmed it, like when you watched it on television, the people that watched it on television, it was the first time ever where there was a news thing where the news stations, the networks didn't have a direct feed. What they had was they filmed the moon landing, they showed it on a projection screen, and then the networks pointed their camera at the projection screen. That's why it looks so shitty.
Wow. Do you remember there was a movie that came out, it wasn't that far back, and it's all about this, like a legit movie. And I should remember this actor's name because he's getting better and better known. He's a really great actor. He played the lawman in Killers of the Flower Moon that shows up there near the end and finally kind of takes them down. But he's been in a lot of other stuff, and it's this really great movie about faking the moon landing and all that stuff for, like, American kind of cultural and economic dominance over Russia and all that.
Oh, so it's like
it's recent.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
Jamie, can you tell Jeff to bring in some coffee?
Oh, yeah.
So it's drama.
It's a drama. Yeah, it's a Hollywood movie.
Oh, Jamie will find out what it is when he gets back.
Yeah, I only saw it once, but it was good. And you know this actor because he's been everywhere, man. He's been in everything. I should know his name. I need to call him out. I think I saw him at the airport in Burbank a few months ago, actually.
It seems like a stupid thing to say, but I don't think it is. And then after COVID, realizing how much stuff they can lie about, how much stuff the government can hide, how much stuff that people will just accept as being true, despite all the evidence to the contrary, how much experts will go along with things, how easy it is to keep a secret. It's not that hard to keep a secret, especially a secret that is essentially set up to let us think, sir.
Dang, that's how I know my wife stopped by.
Yerba mate? Is that what you're into?
I love them, man.
Yeah, they're good.
You know why I like it, really? I didn't realize it for like a year or two, and now I realize it because it tastes just like Coca-Cola.
Does it really?
It does. It's close. I think that's the secret. It tastes like Coca-Cola.
Yeah. I would like to try the original Coca-Cola with cocaine in it.
Oh, shit.
I wonder what that was like.
Non-habit forming.
Yeah, allegedly.
Right?
Yeah, another lie.
Was it true, right, that Bear at first had heroin in it? Or opium?
Really?
The original
Bear
version
aspirin?
of it? Yeah.
Really?
The original product.
We'll find that out.
Yeah, I think it did.
Well, that makes sense. I'm sure. That's real great for headaches. I mean, more lies, right? How many times have we been lied to?
But you know what it is? It's I think it's I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think it's a perception thing, right? With it's like planting that flag on the moon was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
An American pop culture thing.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they wanted us to be dominant militarily over Russia.
Shit worked.
Yeah. I mean, sort of, kind of.
Kinda, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely are dominant over, militarily. We definitely were back then, essentially. Here it is, heroin. Woo! Wow. Bear had heroin.
Non-habit forming.
Right.
I gotta get the non-habit forming kind.
But I mean, like, what is the difference between that and doctors prescribing OxyContin? It's not that much. Sears Roebuck once sold heroin. Jesus Christ. Must have been a wild time back then. Man,
that's a great that's a great illustration there.
Yeah, look at that. 2 needles, 2 vials of heroin, only $1.50. Less than $50 adjusted for inflation. Wow. This is the 19th century. So the 1800s Sears catalog used to offer a heroin kit.
I think the actor you're talking about was Jesse Plemons, but I don't know what
that's him, bro.
About.
See if you could find
Jesse Plemons, just Google
you could
moon.
Yeah, moon.
I did. Well, the flowers of the summer moon keeps popping up.
But do space.
Discovery.
The Discovery? That's 2015? No, 2017?
Try Jesse Plemons' moon conspiracy or space conspiracy.
Huh. Are you sure it wasn't AI? Because there's a lot of those. I thought Keanu Reeves really was in a new Dracula movie. Fake?
I don't know. I'm just gonna look.
Possibly fake. What was the other question we had? Bayer heroin. Yeah, man, they've been tricking people for a long fucking time. If they can make money, they'll trick you.
Yeah.
Back then, they were probably being tricked themselves. People didn't really understand what was addictive and what wasn't. Doctors used to recommend cigarettes for people with emphysema. You got asthma?
Yeah.
You need cigarettes.
Yeah, they were drinking. Athletes are drinking Coca-Cola on the court.
Well, you know who drinks Coca-Cola? Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, after training, would drink Coca-Cola. And there's actually some science to that. Like having sugar, like right after a really hard workout, actually replenishes glucose in the body.
Like Gatorade.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea.
My wife's got me drinking Gatorade again.
That shit's not good for you. There's better versions of electrolytes,
Yeah, you're right.
Electrolytes are good for you. Gatorade's okay. It's got a lot of shit in it. You know? Corn syrup and.
All right, there you go.
Here it is.
Fly Me to the Moon. Channing Tatum.
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Woody Harrelson.
Is that it?
Oh, that's the one.
Scarlett
That's it?
Johansson.
Wait,
That's
that's
2024.
2024. So
that's the one. Yeah, he's not even in it. No, he is in it, I think. But
historical romantic comedy drama. Huh. Tasked with creating a false moon landing.
Apple TV. Didn't see it.
Interesting.
what year was it?
Came out last year, like a year ago.
I never even heard of it.
Oh, I think it's still.
How do you have a movie with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson and you never heard of it? Isn't that crazy? There's too many goddamn movies. Bro, you know what I saw last night?
I think I'm still thinking of a different one, but there's another one.
There's another one? Really?
I think so. I saw it, man. It was a wild movie, and they realized that the whole landing is being faked, and then I mean, I won't want to spoil it, but then they get taken out.
Apparently.
Moon landing, JFK. I mean, what's the damn difference?
Yeah, there's a lot of those, man. There's a lot of. I mean, there's almost nothing. Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin. There's almost nothing from history that's exactly as we're being told. Almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's all a crock of shit.
It's Coke and Pepsi, because I was thinking that's the one thing that they did that everybody liked, and then they've kept that as long as they keep that flavor.
Right.
Right. They can muscle everybody out. It's like. And that's like my
RC Cola, shit like that. Yeah, nobody's into that.
Yeah, and only if you couldn't afford the Coca-Cola price.
Right.
And the Coke machine.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
When I was a kid, that was the only reason we drank RC Colas, because it was 25 cents.
Right, because it was cheap. That's it. And you drank it and you knew it wasn't Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried New Coke. Do you remember that? When I was a kid, God, I think I was in high school. They came up with a new formula of Coca-Cola. Somewhere around the 80s, I think. It was terrible. They tried
rioted.
New Coke, and everybody's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why would you get rid of Coke? It's perfect."
Yeah, don't change that. They can change and try everything else and buy everybody out as long as they keep Coca-Cola flowing.
Yeah, and then Pepsi's always like for weirdos, people who prefer Pepsi.
I never liked it.
Yeah, it's weird.
I like Dr. Pepper.
Well, Coca-Cola is to this day flavored with cocaine. Do you know that?
You mean like
the coca leaves? That's the secret to the flavor of Coca-Cola.
Right.
Coca-Cola, the company that makes Coca-Cola, they are the biggest producers of medical grade cocaine. For real.
Wow.
So they take the coca leaves, they extract the flavonoids out of the coca leaves, and they extract the cocaine. So there's no cocaine in Coca-Cola. But then they take those coca leaves and the flavor goes into Coca-Cola, and then the cocaine goes into medical cocaine.
Wow.
Yeah. To this day.
Wow.
I think they're the only company that's allowed to use coca leaves. I think they're grandfathered in. I think that's is that how it works? I believe they're grandfathered in. But to this day, that's what they use. As I sniffle. But these are real sniffles, folks. These are allergy sniffles. I watched the fucking craziest movie last night. The Substance. Have you heard of that movie?
I've heard of it.
That's that new Demi Moore movie.
Yeah, I was afraid to watch it.
Holy shit, man.
It's intense.
Oh my God, one of the most insane movies I've ever seen in my life. It's about this lady who's getting older, and someone approaches her with this new experimental drug that allows you to live as a young person for 7 days, and then you have to switch back to the old person for 7 days. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it was fucking insane. Like I left, I was like, I gotta watch something stupid on YouTube for a couple hours
Yeah.
before I go to bed because I'm weirded out by this movie.
Yeah, that's the reason I haven't watched it yet. I've already time it was. I'm just saying. Guys, I never liked like the sensory overload, like horror movies.
Oh yeah,
I like classic horror movies.
this is a sensory overload times 10. I mean, it's fucking insane. It's an insane movie. It's really good. I mean, it really grips you. It's very entertaining, but just good lord.
Have you seen Uncut Gems?
Yes, loved that
Isn't
movie.
that a good movie?
Oh my God.
It was like a little much for me, but it was so good, and it wasn't so crazy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I grew up with a lot of gambling addicts. So for that movie like really hit home for me. I was like, oh God, gee, like got anxiety.
Howard,
Like,
is that his name? Howie Howard? You know, Sandler's character?
is that what his name is, Howie?
Yeah, and he's selling diamonds on 42nd
Yeah,
Street or whatever.
yeah.
That's every manager in the music business. Is that
Oh,
guy?
really?
A lot of them.
Bunch of gambling addicts?
They're that guy right there. You know,
God.
they're juggling all these balls in front of you, which is fine. I don't mind guys juggling. What I don't like is when somebody's got all these balls in the air. They're juggling in front of me, and they're like, "Charlie, I'm not juggling."
Oh yeah, the music business. Yeah. Well, there he is. He's great in that movie too.
Man, he's incredible.
You know, I never knew he could act dramatically. You know, I mean, he's always been great in comedies, but he's incredible in that movie. Incredible. I mean,
He had another one he did that was like a serious flick way back. You remember Punch Drunk Love? Do you ever see that one?
No, I never saw that.
That's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah.
But Uncut Gems, the gambling aspect of it, like that sickness, that the gambling sickness is a wild sickness.
I grew up around gamblers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was always a big gambler, and my cousin and I spent a lot of time in casinos with him down in New Orleans on the Mississippi coast and all that. And
Oh, riverboat gamblers.
man, yep,
Those
exactly.
are the craziest.
Man, I didn't mind. You know, he let me and my cousin run all over the place.
Oh,
So we were stoked.
so
know?
you like the fact that he was a degenerate.
Yeah. Oh, and anytime he won, like if he won big, we used to play his bingo. He used to run this bingo hall in New Orleans, and me and my cousin we could both of us with those bingo daubers, we could play 9 card pages for him. We got that good that we could keep up with it, and because he was running the place, nobody in there ever said shit about me and my cousin being like, 8 and 11 or whatever. And if we hit though, it was always a good time. It was Toys R Us and fried shrimp.
That's their juice, man. That's what keeps them going in life. Just that next bet, you know. I grew up around a lot of pool halls, and when I was in my early 20s, and I was just around so many people that just live for gambling. They would go straight from off-track betting right to the pool hall. And, they'd bet on anything. They'd bet on 2 raindrops coming down a window pane. They'd bet on roaches. They'd bet on anything. You name it. They'd flip a coin for 10. I saw dudes flip a coin for thousands of dollars. A guy would win a tournament. Like, this is like a famous thing in pool. Guys would win a tournament, win $10,000, flip a coin, lose the whole thing. And you had to have heart. You had to be like that was like part of the culture. You had to be willing to bet.
Right.
And everybody's always, because the only
And
way
take
it's
the loss.
fun, the only way it's fun is if money's constantly flowing. So if someone's trying to be conservative, someone's trying to save them, they called them a nit. Like, you're a nit. They didn't like you. Nobody likes a nit. Like, those are the guys that get shunned by the pool hall. They're bad action.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, all over the place, really. But
Where were those pool halls?
New York. Well, I moved to New York when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, like 23. And that's when I got indoctrinated into pool culture.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just the most fun group of degenerates and weirdos and outcasts. And, as a comedian, I never felt like I fit in normal society, and then I'm around those dudes. I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are just like me. You don't fit in either. Like, you're a bunch of fucking weirdos.
Man, what I just thought about, Joe, when I was on the street in New York, I played up there, and I'm sure but I'd play on the street all day, and at first I was playing in the parks, and then I moved downtown. I was trying to play on street corners in the villages and all that, and you're dealing with traffic and cops, and that's what drove me down into the subway platforms, and those were really competitive too. So even there, I started playing at the stations that nobody wanted, or weren't desirable, or weren't nobody's really competing for the spots or whatever. And I would do that all day, and then I would hit open mics all over the 5 boroughs every night, everywhere. And the comedy guys were always the coolest, because all of them, because we weren't in competition. Right. Like I know comedians can be really competitive on the circuit, and obviously same thing on the music side. But I ended up like playing I would open up for a lot of guys, like I'm like at the Red Door and like in the circuit there in the city and shit.
Oh, cool.
Open guys up with 2 or 3 songs or play their breaks or whatever, and all the comedy folks liked me, I think, because I wasn't one of them.
Yeah,
we were cousins or something.
Right. There's always been a relationship like that. Like Oliver Anthony was at the Mothership this weekend, and it's the first music act we've ever had perform there.
That's cool.
Yeah, you could perform there too if you ever want to, man.
I know where it's at.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I like that you got it down there, man.
It's a great spot. 6th Street is just such a fucking wild place.
It is.
To have it right there is perfect, and to have it at the old Ritz. It's amazing. So, it was great.
Is that what it is in the old Ritz?
Yeah, we bought the old Ritz. Yeah. We have to keep the Ritz sign because it's, one of those historical buildings.
Oh, it's a great sign.
Oh, it's a great sign. It's got so much history. In the tunnel on the way to the stage, there's a big picture of Stevie Ray Vaughan on the stage in 1983.
Oh.
Yeah.
You like SRV?
Fuck yeah.
Come on.
Come on, man. Come on. He's the only dude who could play Voodoo Child. Doesn't make me sick.
Man.
Other than Hendrix.
That's right.
2 dudes.
Yeah, you're right.
Hendrix and him. I mean, other people. I'm sure other people could do it. I've never heard it.
Nah, fuck that. Just them. Oh, yeah, man.
There's certain songs that you can't fuck with. Although I did see, one time I saw Honey Honey and Gary Clark Jr. play Midnight Rider, and I didn't think anybody else could play Midnight Rider. And to hear Gary's song with Midnight Rider, with that, like Gary's signature sound.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that signature guitar
You've seen
sound.
Gary? You've seen Gary live?
Oh, yeah, I'm friends with Gary.
Man.
Yeah, I've seen him a bunch of times.
Yeah, I love Gary, too.
I love that dude.
That guy.
He's so good.
Man, I remember.
I gave something to him, and I got it for you, too.
What is it?
This is a real, genuine woolly mammoth guitar pick that is made out of woolly mammoth tusk.
Damn, that is something fierce, bud.
10,000 plus years old. And then that's a shout out to my friend John Reeves from the Boneyard in Alaska. I got a buddy of mine who has this spot in Alaska where they just pull all kinds of crazy mastodon, woolly mammoth, fucking cave bear, all kinds of skulls, all kinds of wild shit out of this one piece of property where a lot of animals died. And he's taken a lot of the woolly mammoth. That's where I got this too. This is a tooth. This is a tooth that was carved.
Wow.
Into a piece of art with a mammoth in it.
That's a big old goddamn tooth, son.
Imagine.
Can I see how heavy that is?
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy, right?
It's beautiful too, man.
Yeah, so that guitar pick is yours, brother.
Man, thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Any cool guys who play guitar, give them one of them picks.
I've never been good at holding a pick. So I learned how to play with my hands, and because I could never hold a pick well, but a lot of guys I know that are really great pickers, they play these really hard picks, and can real precise with them. And I still can't hold them.
You learned with your fingers?
Yeah. I never held. I just couldn't hold the pick. I would try to hold it and it'd get sideways, and I never, like all this, like the straight cowboy chords, C, F, G, whatever. I couldn't hold any of those chords. Like when I was teaching myself, the positioning was weird for me, and so like I kind of threw away the book and I did what you call choking the chicken on the fret, kind of hold it like you're choking the chicken. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I developed my style. And then I learned all the regular chords many years later,
Are you totally self-taught?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. When did you start?
I was 17. My mama got me a guitar out of a pawn shop in South Irving.
Wow.
This Honer guitar.
And you just started messing around with it?
Yeah. My mama had tried to get me on the piano when I was younger, and I just couldn't focus, and yeah, I don't know. 17 was like the right age. I needed it, you know. Started banging around on that guitar, and I mean, it must have sounded terrible. And me and my mama lived in this little ass place, this tiny place, and I was like scared to play in front of her, you know. But I was at first, and I would say, "Mama, am I any good?" You know, and she wasn't gonna lie to me, and she said, "Well, son, when you play, people will believe you." She wasn't gonna lie to me and tell me I was good, but she was trying to say, you know, just be honest with your music, and the rest will take care of it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
When you play, people will believe you.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the next time anybody believed in me wasn't until I started hitchhiking. And I remember because I've been out in California a bunch recently, and I had caught a ride with this guy. We were playing at this place called the Shanty up in Farmers Branch, Dallas-Fort Worth area years ago. And there was this witch lady they called her a witch. This kind of magic woman who had a barn out behind her house, and they called it the Shanty. And she would have people over on the weekends and just kind of any random night, travelers, misfits, whatever, back there in the barn, and everybody'd be telling stories and trading songs and, you know, taking potions, stuff like that. Long story short, this guy I met one night, his parents had worked for like Texas Instruments, and he had disowned them, you know, because his parents were like scientists, and he woke up one day as a young man and realized his parents were manufacturing like weapons, you know, and I never saw this guy again, but that was his whole deal why he left Texas.
Oh, wow.
And he was just back visiting this gal that had this Shanty deal. And I talked that guy that he promised he was describing this town of Boonville, which is this community in Mendocino County, Northern California. And the way he was describing it to me in this barn or whatever, it sounded like the Garden of Eden or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I wanted so badly to go with him, and he promised me and this other guy that was playing guitar too that he would take us. And we passed out at the lady's house. When we woke up that next morning, he was still there. And I was like, "Man, you ready to go to California?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" "What are you talking about?" Like, when I pressed him, he's like, "Man, I was on acid." I was on acid. I don't remember any of that. I don't have any room for you. And I begged him like my life depended on it. And he took me and this old boy who was playing guitar, actually taught me a lot of songs back then. He took us to California. But as we got closer to Boonville, and we were talking to naive young Texas boys who had never been anywhere, he realized he, you know, didn't want us going anywhere near those hippies he was living with there in Boonville. So he left us, he pulled into like a grocery store and left us in this parking lot in Vacaville. And that's when I really started hitchhiking in my life, is like when we kind of got abandoned in a parking lot.
Wow.
Kind of along the 5, right?
How old were you?
21, probably 22, something like that. And I had done a little bit of hitching before, like around the South, Texas and like Louisiana, but I'd never really been way out there. And anyway, I started hitchhiking around because I had to. But I remember it was in California the first time by anybody besides my mama ever looked at me playing guitar as it having any kind of value, you know, like any economic value, or like it was a trade of, you know, recognition, you know. It was kind of the first time I was out there.
So you'd been playing about 4 or 5 years back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was playing outside because our place was so small. I wasn't playing outside to like make money or anything like that. I would go to this park, had like a baseball diamond on it, sit on these bleachers or whatever. And I'll never forget the first time anybody threw like just a pocket full of change in my case. I'm sure it's because they, you know, were worried about me or felt bad for me,
yeah,
or whatever, you know. And it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that money hit the case and then like a light went off or anything, you know. It was a slow, gradual deal. Like I was playing outside because there wasn't enough room to play in the house or whatever, And then, I got in a lot of trouble with the law, which kind of put me on the run, put me on the road. And
What was the trouble with the law?
I've said it a lot, and it's funny, I'm a lot better known than I used to be, so it's like you say stuff about your family, and they hear about it, and
They get mad.
Yeah. But it's so funny because it's all over the internet, and they're the ones that had the government on their ass, not me. But anyways, yeah, we just kind of, shit hit the fan, got up in the newspapers. My brother didn't go to high school. Neither did my sister. Neither of them went to high school. They both dropped out, because I'm from South Texas. I was born in the Rio Grande Valley. They were born up in Dallas, but my mama had moved down there to South Padre Island area, McAllen, Harlingen area there. And anyway, it's poor and pretty hard living down there. And, hell, I didn't wear shoes till I was probably 9 or 10 years old,
Really?
Playing outside. And my brother and sister, they're 10 years older than me, half brother and sister, and we have different daddies. And they really lived wild, things were pretty tough back then or whatever. I'm telling you that background because my brother became a hustler, because he had to, because of a lack of education, lack of access, because of poverty. And I've honestly always respected him for that, He used to take me around door to door selling newspapers when I was 11, right? And you want to know why? Because I had broken my arm. And he realized if you carted that young boy out in front of those apartments when that lady answered the door, and it's these two brothers, and one of them's got a broken arm, she's gonna go ahead and subscribe.
Yeah, she feels bad.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, man, he, through all that stuff, he started out as a door-to-door salesman, hustling newspaper subscriptions, right? Then he started selling neckties and men's clothing door to door in downtown Dallas office buildings, and as a very young man. And eventually he graduated to, hard knock boiler room type of guys. You keep knocking on those doors in that Wild West business scene of towns like Dallas, or Houston, eventually you're going to find what you're looking for. And he got in with some big old wolves, and eventually it knocked everybody out, and a lot of people died, a lot of people went to prison. And, we were in the paper, and I found myself not being able to get a bank account, and nobody I knew would go near me, and so it ended up being like a Bob Marley type of thing, he said, if you're not living good, travel wide, right? And I literally just walked out of town because, we had scarlet letters on our chest, and that's when I really started learning how to stand behind that guitar and write songs, and slowly but surely I learned how to play basically in front of people, and people just were giving me money kind of over time. That and, food and shelter in exchange for my story at their back door.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. You think your family's got drama? Wait till you meet the Buckleys. I'm talking about the new Netflix drama, The Waterfront. Set in a coastal town in North Carolina, it follows the powerful Buckley family who've ruled Havenport for decades. But now their fishing empire is falling apart fast, and their legacy is on the line. There's power grabs, addiction, legacy, love. From the creator of Scream and Dawson's Creek, The Waterfront is messy, twisty, and totally binge-worthy. Watch The Waterfront now, only on Netflix. Do you ever wonder, how things could have gone? Because things turned out great. Look, you're a popular music artist now.
Yeah.
Worldwide. You're famous.
I'm surprised you know what I'm surprised by? I'm surprised I never got heavily addicted to drugs.
Yeah?
I am. It was my sister passed away 10 years ago from substances and hard living and all that kind of stuff. And hell, my whole family's in AA. Everybody, top to bottom, left to right, turn them inside out. I think about it a lot, but I really do, And I remember I was living with that guy who was at the shanty that was playing guitar. He's on the football team. I knew him from sports. His name was Daniel Harmon. And he went out there to California with me that first time. And we were living on farms and I was working for ganja farmers, working on horse farms, working for winemakers, all kind of people, just doing grunt work for them, doing the fence work they didn't want to do, moving soil for people, you know what I mean, digging ditches, laying pipe across really hard, rocky roads. Not anything anybody can do. You just need, broad back and to be young.
Right.
And but before I ever left Texas, I moved in with his sister, and I remember, and she was just my friend. I was never in a relationship with her or anything, but she was working at Silver City in West Dallas, the Gentlemen's Club, at 18, and making more money than anybody I'd ever seen. The girl was 18, and just making crazy money. And she let me rent a room from her and kind of gave me a deal and all that. And I ended up writing a song kind of about it more recently called Easy Money that I did with Shooter on the Lonesome Drifter record. And that's kind of that thing, if you're a poor kid from Texas, there's no such thing, as easy money. But I can't remember why I was telling you that, but it was hard I just remember you'd see young women working in strip clubs, making big money. And the ones that I was around and have been around, very, very hard for that line of work, my line of work, your line of work, not to become addicted.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with, a lot of the best artists I ever saw struggled with addiction, but in that way, I have been very fortunate, very, very fortunate.
How did you avoid it?
I don't know. You know what it is, man? I never had no kind of tolerance. I've always been I just get drunk off of one drink. And it's never changed. Well, I just felt it all really strong,
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a survival instinct too.
I've never really thought about why, but I have considered it because my brother's been through, he did a lot of time in prison, and, my sister had, and my mama, they both had their first kid, when they were teenagers, A lot of it I do credit to my mama, it's she told me something I remember that stuck with me. I've been saying this all the time, Joe. And we had a lot of trouble in our family, and a lot of people that we knew, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trauma. But when my mama kind of got out of that, she kind of is the person in the family that said, I'm going to change the trajectory of this line now in my generation. And she didn't have an education, and, she took herself back to school after I was born, and cleaned up her act and got out of it and isolated me from a lot of that shit. And, which I think is a big part of the reason that I maybe didn't.
Right, you had a role model.
Yeah, I had a role model.
Yeah.
There was no male role models, at least not at home. They were only pro athletes and coaches at school. It's increasingly difficult for young men to find strong men of courage and vision that can help them grow into good men too. It seems almost impossible these days. It's unbelievable.
It's
right?
very difficult to find in your personal life.
It's hard, man.
You have to find it in other ways. You have to find it people online or
I found it
in
in
the world.
Athletes in excellence in athletics.
Right.
Where
the only way you can get there is hard work.
Yeah. And the odds are stacked against you, and it requires incredible focus. I think that's why I'm always so in such awe of those people when they're able to succeed like that. But what I wanted to say to you that my mama said, she said, what happened to you when you were young is not your fault, but now you're a man, and it's your responsibility. And I've been living off of that, for a long time, because it's if you don't take responsibility at some point, man, it'll never leave you alone.
Right. You can't think that you're a victim. Yeah, you can't think that it's not your fault. You got to take responsibility. That's hard for people to accept when they know they've been victimized. When
Yeah.
they know they've been dealt a shitty hand of cards, you can just kind of wallow in it. But that's a trap. That's a trap that'll fuck you up. That'll fuck up everybody around you too.
Damn right.
Yeah, but it's a mindset thing. It's like you can think your way out of that. You have to have an example though. Either you have to be your own example, or you have to find an example of someone else who thought their way out of it.
And for my brother, for all the trouble that he's been in, in a way, like, I think he also was trying to help me, and so, his hustle and his work ethic, in another sense, that's been helpful to me too, because I remember he used to hand out flyers and shit all over the place. And when I'd be like a teenager, he'd be like, listen to me now. If you leave an event at the other day that you're handing out flyers and you're flooding it with promotion, if you can even see that pavement underneath the, pamphlets that you're handing out, you didn't promote it.
Wow.
That's what he used to tell me. I was like 15, 16, and that mentality came in handy for me because, I was just a street performer, just an itinerant performer. And, I did have to learn how to market myself, and part of the reason that I was, sometimes being underestimated is like the best thing that could happen to you, because I think one of the biggest challenges for, like, in the music industry at least, is that the way the business works now is they're almost exclusively, you ever seen Moneyball? Brad Pitt flick Moneyball?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How they introduced that concept of looking at the data to, like, maximize the potential of the athletes and all that kind of stuff, which has totally changed the game, all the games. I kind of call it money guitar, right? Which is like, the business is seeding the young amateur, and for the way that they spend and invest and can move on if it doesn't work out, it's like kind of a, it's kind of a pump and dump, and
Right.
the thing about that, and it works. Like if somebody has like some of these guys, like you mentioned Oliver Anthony and some of these guys, they have a viral hit out of nowhere. They've never played a venue or anything in their life. It can happen really fast. And then obviously there's tremendous challenges, down the line trying to keep that, astronomical, quick rise up there. But back in the day, the business deals weren't any good. You know that. They were terrible.
Right.
What they were good about, though, in a lot of cases, was developing these artists on these rosters, even if they were taking advantage of these poor farm boys, taking advantage, of, poor black artists from the South or women or whatever. Nobody was getting a good deal, basically. But, like guys like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, those guys were making 2-3 records a year.
Wow.
And you think about when Waylon breaks through, right, in the mid-'70s, and like, as he's doing, coming into his own in 1974, 1975. I mean, how many records in is he at that point?
Wow.
He's,
Yeah.
well, how many, I mean, Willie's Red-Headed Stranger, which revolutionized country music, or like the Outlaws compilation record that the two of them were on together, which was basically a compilation and kind of marketed as the outlaw subgenre. Those guys were 15, 16, 17 records in,
Right.
Aretha Franklin popped off on her 9th or 10th record.
Wow.
And most of these artists, the way the business works, they won't make 9 or 10 records in their career.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
That is crazy. And what better way to develop than to just keep constantly producing new music and learn along the way?
In being neglected or misunderstood by the business when I was first dealing with it, it was really a blessing, because I ended up making so many records,
Yeah. The music business has always been so predatory. But it's like, it's the way I describe a lot of things. It's like when you get something that's good combined with a bunch of people that want to make money off that something that's good. You know, whether it's medicine or whether it's music or even in comedy, you get the same thing. You get a bunch of people that just think they can make money off you.
Man, I always thought comedy was the hardest. Always figured it was the hardest, right? Because you mean, like, you got to make them laugh or they're gonna fucking kill you.
And you have new shit all the time.
There's nothing behind you. There's not even a guitar covering you up.
Right.
It's crazy to me just to watch all those guys do their bit and shit. So like, I was always amazed by even people going up at like the open mics and like trying out their routine. You know, that always terrified me.
It terrifies me still when I watch open mics. I watch open mics and I watch someone bombing. I got to leave the room because I fear that it's contagious. Like if I was on the road and I didn't get to pick my opening acts, like if I was working at a club and they had some local act in Florida or something like that, and the guy was fucking terrible, I would literally have to like not listen. I'd have to leave the room and just sort of time when I was going to go on stage so I could go on stage with a fresh mindset. I couldn't think that this audience had been poisoned by this guy's shitty comedy.
I get that.
You know what I mean? It's like it's terrible, and it's like you think that nothing could be funny.
Yeah.
It's like this, like he's hypnotized them into this like mediocre state of mind. Like, I can't listen. I gotta hide.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they could have that strong an effect on the audience like that quick. I mean, somebody can be up there fucking it up like crazy musically, and you kind of get a pass, you know, you know, poetic license or whatever.
Well, you know, it's tolerable if the guy's into it. You know, he could be into his own music, and you're like, I'm not into it, but he's into it. At least he's like doing his song. If you're doing comedy and the audience is not into it, you're fucked. You're like really fucked. You have to engage those people.
Yeah, I see that. It's unbelievable.
You got to be connected to those people, and you can't fake it. Like, you can't even be saying the words perfectly and not be thinking about it. You have to be thinking about what you're saying. They know. They're little animals. They smell you. They know. They know if you're faking it. And you just got to lock in, man. And you got to learn how to lock in. It takes about 10 years. It takes 10 years of eating shit. Just fucking bombing and traveling around and opening up for people and barely getting by.
That's the same thing with music, though, about the 10-year deal, you know, the 10,000-hour thing. There's no doubt about it.
I think it's probably almost everything.
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Anything you dedicate yourself to. You know, you like Noam Chomsky?
Yeah, sure.
You ever
seen old Noam Chomsky?
Yeah.
I listened to him today. I'm like, Jesus, stop talking.
Yeah, he's popping off, isn't he?
Well, he just went the COVID vaccine stuff. He was out of his fucking mind. He wanted people to be isolated and quarantined and taken away from society if they weren't willing to take this fucking experimental shit that turned out to
I
not
haven't
even
kept
work.
up with him in recent years.
Well, he's old, right? And old people, unfortunately, also, he's an academic. So academics tend to trust experts in whatever field they're in. And if he doesn't have an understanding, like he has a deep understanding of how compromised people are politically by money, you know, and he's written some brilliant work on essentially the way the media is compromised and the way, you know, politics are compromised. I don't think he applied that same skepticism towards the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Which is strange.
Well, people have their blind spots.
Yeah, we all do.
And they trust experts, and if he's got experts that are academics, and you trust them, and also he's old, and old people get real scared of diseases. They get real scared because they know how fucking vulnerable they are. All the people that I knew that were old had the craziest reaction to COVID. Terrified. Even my own parents tried to talk them through some of this stuff. They didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to listen to doctors. I'm like, I don't think this is what they're telling you.
Yeah,
you know?
Doctors are crazy. They got a cabinet full of pills that they've been sold to sell you.
And they're incentivized. That's what's really crazy. When I found that out, I learned so much during the pandemic about the medical industry where I just thought they were there to, I'm so naive, I didn't even realize that hospitals are privately owned. I thought these were things set up by the government to make sure that people can get healed.
Right.
You know, I thought it was all about making people better. And
they're not public. The closest thing to public, they're as if they're owned by like a, religious organization,
Right.
a church.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And they're just fucking shuffling people in and out, trying to prescribe them as many things, and they're financially incentivized to prescribe things. And then they have extreme overhead because they have liability insurance,
Yeah.
they have student loan debt, and they have, a high overhead to keep their practice running. And
Where's Bernie Sanders when you need him?
yeah, well,
Well, no, see, so I had open heart surgery right here in Austin to fix a
what was wrong with your heart?
valve here. Well, I was born with Wolff Parkinson's white disease. It's an electrical issue in your heart. Basically, like your heart misfires. All this electricity is moving through it all the time. Like a semiconductor or whatever. And there was like a section of it that was like misfiring, and it would cause an arrhythmia with me.
Wow.
And when I was a kid in South Texas, we were told that was all I knew about, and we were told that it was an annoyance. Because I almost died a couple times when I was really, really young from it, and my mama noticed and saved my life a couple times by driving in, into the city there into San Benito, and them hooking me up to all the wires and saving me. Anyways, they told me as I got older that it would just, I could get, an ablation for it, where they apply heat basically and close this electrical channel that's stuck in a loop or whatever. But it wasn't life-threatening. And then I got out here, I was on the street for years. And then when I was coming off the street through kind of blues jams, and I had been, I was working on ganja farms and had started selling, weed in the mail and all that to kind of get off street, buy myself some better clothes, get myself a good guitar and an amp and all that, started showing up at blues jams, and then I could because everything takes money, problem with being a street player was you even go play the open mics that have a 2 damn drink minimum.
Right.
And they'd see my crazy ass come in and knew that I was, pretty wild, and they didn't have any money. and I didn't smell good. So they really didn't like me for the longest time or whatever. But through blues jams, I started leading bands in bars, and Deep Ellum, first gig I ever got in Austin was right there at Darwin's Pub, on 6th Street, playing kind of solo in the afternoon. It was the only guy, CJ was the only guy that gave me a gig, even on 6th Street. I always owed him for that. And I mean, he was giving me $50. He wanted me to get paid out of the well whiskey and those what does he sell over there? Those gyros or whatever the hell he's got over there. Anyway, I get on the road. I get an agent. I was standing out at Green Hall handing CDs out on a street corner because I couldn't get into the show. Handed a guy a CD. His name's Evan Felker. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he's front man for Turnpike Troubadours. I gave him a CD, and he took it home and he listened to it with his then girlfriend and now wife, and lo and behold, his agent, John Folk, called me up and started booking me. And then that's when I started playing the old red dirt. I like to call it the Hank Williams circuit, the kind of old country chitlin circuit. John Folk had kind of inherited it from like Buddy Lee Attractions from an earlier generation that goes all the way back to Lucky Moeller and that old South circuit that all the R&B and the hillbilly country boys were on, and Folk kind of inherited it and rebuilt it. And then then Coke and Pepsi came in, CAA and William Morris and Wasserman, and bought it all out, and you had no choice. I mean, they were going to part it out no matter what, and that's the way that it works, right? When you get Coca-Cola's attention, right, and they show up and they're like, good job. You're taking some of our money away from us. We're going to buy you out, son. And right? I think you can refuse them once or twice, and they'll come back with a better deal, right? After that, if you keep turning them down, then they put all their energy into knocking you out,
Yeah.
That's what I mean. As long as Coke doesn't change the flavor of Coca-Cola, right? They can, that gangster shit, all the other gangster shit they do works really well. As long as they don't fuck up the original flavor, right?
Right.
So I'm on that circuit working my ass off. 200 and whatever shows a year for a bunch of years in a row, playing all over the place. Seems like sometimes we play 21 nights in a row out there, for shit kickers at Bonita Creek Hall and punk rock clubs in New Jersey and shit, you know, playing at the fucking, you know, the Saint, that little club, the Saint in Asbury Park. It's like a 40 cap, man. It's a badass place. Anyway, I was like blacking out. I moved up to a bus and shit, and I was like, I was getting really lightheaded. And I'd be sitting in the back of the bus, and I would be so lightheaded, I'd be blacking out a lot, right? Just sitting there, short of breath. But I just thought, you know, I'm grinding, I'm playing all these shows, I'm going as hard as you can go, taking potions, you know, just doing all this dumb shit, working hard. And I was playing at the old Shady Grove here in town that's now closed down. They used to do, it was the KGSR radio thing. Marsha Millam put it on or whatever, and then it turned into, you know, ACL Radio, and then Shady Grove closed down there on Barton Springs or whatever. But I played it a handful of times. First time I played it, there was nobody there. Second time I played it, it was packed, and I had Willie's old tour bus, the Red-Headed Stranger. It was one of the ones he lost in the IRS era that he never got back.
Oh, wow.
And this fucking shyster, Chuck Ligon, I remember some motherfucker was selling this thing on the side of the highway up in Oklahoma. The Red-Headed Stranger with the murals on it and shit. It's a beautiful bus. Somehow this guy gets it. Right? I shouldn't call him a shyster, but he definitely shysted me.
That's a shyster then.
Yeah. You know, the music business is crazy because it's so...
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the one, man. Yeah, that's the one. On the other side, it says, driven only by the finest bass players.
Wow.
You know, because somebody in the band always drove those old buses. I had that bus. I used that bus exclusively for about a year or whatever. And we get off the stage at Shady Grove, and my heart had gone out of rhythm. How did I just say this? I almost died in the back of that bus. I end up finding, because it won't go, here I am, 30-something years old, or in my early 30s. My arrhythmia is out. It's going out, and it's getting harder and harder to get back in, to shock it back into normal rhythm. And I just kept ignoring it because somebody told me in South Texas in the 80s not to worry about it. Anyway, you know, it turned out that my heart had enlarged and all this shit was going on. And I had to get surgery. The long roundabout point that I'm making to you about medical industry that I learned the hard way, man, is like no one's advocating for you. Only you. You have to be your own advocate. They don't give a fuck. You know, they don't. Like, they were just going to automatically put a mechanical valve in my heart, right? Automatically. Didn't present any other options, anything, right? And I get there on the American Heart Association webpage or whatever, because I didn't have insurance at the time or anything. Nothing, you know. The only reason that they covered me at the time was the Affordable Care Act, and I had the right window where they could not deny me, right? Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. And that is absolutely an imperfect system, right? I just didn't have health insurance. So here they are covering me, and probably because I don't have money and they're dealing with, you know, how it is, you know, American business practices or whatever. They're like, here's this mechanical valve. And I go and look it up, Joe, and it's like, you know, if you have a mechanical valve, you automatically are on blood thinner the rest of your life. Automatically. No matter what. And you can't, that's just how it's going to be. It lasts twice as long as a prosthetic valve, which I had not heard of at that point. But that was the whole thing. This can last up to 20 years. But guess what? You have like 300% higher risk of a stroke with a mechanical valve as a bioprosthetic cow valve. And then the third thing was that you can hear that thing clicking. You can hear the valve ticking.
My buddy Everlast has one of those.
Really?
Yeah, he could go like this.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
And I was reading about that, and man, I'm like neurotic, like I knew. I'm like, I'll never get over it. So that's when I found out about the bovine cow valve.
So it's made out of a cow?
Yeah, Edwards Scientific makes it. I carry a little card around in my wallet with the tag of you know, that product number in case somebody finds me on the sidewalk.
Wow.
You know, and that.
How long does that last?
They're supposed to last around 10 years, and I had mine done right there at Seton. You know, Seton Medical there on 38th in January 2019. So we're coming back around to it.
So you have to get another operation?
Yeah, but what they did is the way they did it, and here's the thing about, right, medical and anything, right? The medical industry is, I think, really fucked up and really predatory, totally profit driven, and like, you know, people's health and preventative well-being and all that. I mean, we don't give a fuck about that in this country. You know, I mean, there's no money to be made off of people taking care of themselves and eating right and being preventative and like, you know, there's nothing in that. The part about it that is amazing though, even in the like kind of insanity of all the land of cheap traders, is the technological advancements.
Yeah.
The technological advancements in the medical field, though not really, you know, available to the common person, they are incredible advancements, right? So it's like they're moving so quickly that by the time I need to get another one, I don't think they'll ever have to cut me open again, because they can like go in through a scope now. Wow. They could do it at that time. It was just more experimental, and they didn't want to do it. They were only doing it on really high risk older patients, you know, but I think it's already kind of gone more mainstream from where when they cut me open to like if I did it right now, I could probably get around cutting it. You know?
So they'll go in through an artery.
Yeah.
And then what do they have to do to it?
Well, so with me, what was happening was so I had the Wolff Parkinson's White. I had to get the ablation first before I could deal with aortic valve disease is what it's called. And what it basically is that over your aorta, there's these three valves that sit over the top of your aorta that they look like a Mercedes symbol is what they look like. It's like the best example. It really looks like a Mercedes symbol. And some people, it's a bicuspid or whatever. Some people are born with two of the three fused together or just one missing altogether. And it turned out that I was missing one. It's like a leaky carburetor, you know? Wow. So like as the time goes, that old carburetor in that truck over time, just leaking more and more and more.
Wow.
You know? And I mean, I just got lucky, man, because I was like in the back of that fucking bus, and there was this lady driving us back then that like was like holding seances and burning sage over the top of me while I was like laying in the back of that bus, like that was gonna heal me. that shit didn't work. And she doesn't drive me anymore. Get yourself a good bus driver. You have to get a good bus driver, or you'll never get good sleep.
Yeah, because you'll be freaking out. You'll be thinking, what if this person falls asleep?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Especially the late night drives.
Oh, man.
Ooh, late night drives are scary. That highway starts hypnotizing you.
There was this guy, there was a video going around. He drove us around for a little bit. And there was this video passing around the industry. This guy they called Jimbo. It was this bus driver that was like, you know, just a speed freak. And it was like this video of him where he was like on whatever he was on. And somebody had recorded him, or like they'd put a phone up or something because they knew he was nuts. And he was like having one of those fucking like, you know, methamphetamine freakouts, like, you know, driving the bus down the road, and it was getting all passed around the industry. And I saw it because like he was driving us at the time.
Jeez.
I remember we woke up somewhere in New Mexico one morning because we were going on this road all of a sudden. And I get up and I go to the front of the bus, and we're like on some fucking 2-track, you know, caliche fucking
dirt
road that was like behind a gate in a bus, that bus, right? And I get up there, and he's looking all crazy, and the inside door handle of the bus had been pulled off and shit. It was crazy, man. When we got back down here in Texas, man, I never saw a fool again.
Jesus Christ. Well, you got to think, if you're driving buses all through the night, there's a high likelihood you're on amphetamines.
Yeah, exactly.
High likelihood.
Yeah.
For the business, it's like probably the best way to stay awake.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously that shit's very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you need it. This band has to get to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
We got to get to Cincinnati. It's an 8-hour drive. There's only one way to do it. We got to drive through the night.
And that's why all the old performers were all on pills, you know.
Yeah.
And they were getting prescribed. I mean, you know, and they were getting prescribed that shit by the doctor.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. Does this give you a greater appreciation for life, the value of life, like knowing you almost lost it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought about. Immediately after that, I just started thinking about my mortality.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't really thought about it before. You know.
Of course, everybody feels invulnerable when you're young.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young and you're living that wild, transient, moving around, no roots.
When I was in my 20s, I guess I really, looking back now, I was like, man, I was young. Like, I thought I could live like that forever. I thought I could live hand in mouth and, sleep in people's pastures and, do the gentleman hobo thing forever. But, I was 26.
There's something romantic about that too, right?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I wouldn't take it back, man. I mean, like, I believe that, I think mental slavery is something that is real. But so much of it is us. Like, we do it to ourselves,
Yeah.
And so that's what I was going to say about Chomsky. I haven't kept up with him in years. But I remember something he said a long time ago that stuck with me, where he was talking about, like, American, consumerism over the last 100 years. It really kind of illuminated my kind of mind. He was like, there are people working really, really, really hard to eliminate your sense of purpose for the explicit goal of making you a more efficient consumer, right? All human beings live for and desire a life of purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose. It doesn't matter what it is, something that you can dedicate yourself to, the 10,000 hours, the 10 years. It can be, anything, wood making, or your buddy with this ancient tooth that he's carving into this beautiful piece of art, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's like a heavy thing, but I kind of realized when I became a transient that a lot of who I was like this amalgamation of a bunch of people just trying to fucking sell me products. 90s radio just blasting my brain as a kid, right? Like, programming that, like, it's like so much programming is so hard for me to watch, because that it's only a vehicle for the commercials.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So whenever I'm watching something, and as soon as I think that it's not that good, I can't stop thinking about, like, well, this is just a vehicle for me to fucking, think I need whatever the fuck they're selling.
Yeah.
So I feel like I killed, like, a lot of the false version of me that I was becoming, that I only realized when I walked away from Crystal City. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I could, and then I really started becoming, me. That's when I really started becoming me.
A lot of people are prisoners to that their whole life, because the only value they place is in how much stuff they're able to acquire. That's the only value that they see in life. They look at numbers on a ledger, so they look at numbers in their bank account, and they look at the stuff they're willing to acquire, or that they're able to acquire.
Right.
And that's their only measure of success in this life.
Yeah, the very definition of the word rich has changed so much over the last 100 years. It's kind of moved entirely. It really richness wasn't a material idea, but it.
What did it used to be?
Richness of life, fullness of life.
Right. Fulfillment.
Fulfillment.
Purpose.
Health.
Yeah.
Community.
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Friends. Yeah. Real life. But so many people, they forego all that. They'll throw everything out the window just for the numbers. For numbers, and they think they're successful.
I mean, it's the way that it's being run, like, I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch, you know? All this free social media shit ain't free.
No.
You know?
You give up your attention. Your attention's very, very
everything.
valuable. Your data
Privacy.
and your attention. Yeah, your privacy.
The transparent society.
Yeah.
But man, like, you know, y'all pulled up that AI stuff. I remember, I won't tell you the whole thing, but I was playing on the street in Europe when I was younger. I'd met a guy down on the Lower East Side. He's a Danish jazz singer. And he would show up over in the States a couple times a year. And he was doing really well there in Denmark. And the state really sponsors the arts there in a big way. And it's a small country, high quality of life. Like, he really had it made over there. And when he was coming over to the States to play music, it was almost more of a leisure thing for him. Benjamin Augerbach is his name. Great singer, great jazz singer. And he'd show up at the open mics and all this shit. And I think he really liked me because he saw the way that I was living this American gypsy lifestyle. And he eventually helped me get over to Europe, and I played the club circuit in Copenhagen for like 6 weeks or whatever. And I was really rough around the edges, and like the American novelty in the folk and like blues clubs around Copenhagen wore off really quick. And I wound up back on the street, but this time in Europe. And as soon as I started playing on the street in Copenhagen, man, then being a real Texan in Europe in front of tourists on the street, man, that's when I started making money. It was
Really?
crazy. My money like quadrupled because all of a sudden I was like a truly exotic. Texas is exotic, and everywhere you go in the world, it means something, right? They either want to shake your hand or they step back, and it doesn't matter where you go in the world. There's not an inch of the world that hadn't heard of Texas, you know, and so musically, you know, and I think culturally it means something no matter what, you know, and to play music and be a Texan is worth a lot on its own. You know what I mean? It's a big part of it. It's just being a Texan. Gary Clark Jr. learning how to hold his own under the tradition of Austin blues players in Texas, guitar slingers. I mean, it's second to none in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you've seen them live, you know what it is. And but I remember seeing, like, there were no self-checkouts at grocery stores and shit in the United States back then. Not one. And then I ended up down in France because it was getting cold in Copenhagen, and I had like 200 or 300 kroner left, and I put it all on a bus ticket to Paris because it was my mama's favorite city, and I grew up quite a bit in Louisiana, having some of that French heritage, and I went down there. I'm glad I didn't think about it, man, because the language barrier was really difficult, and I didn't really realize it until I was pulling into the city, you know. And actually, there was an Algerian guy who spoke English that was like, man, go to Montmartre, go to Les Sacré-Cœur, that's where the tourists are, whatever. And I kind of learned how to hustle tourists with gypsies, kind of, that were using me kind of as a decoy on the steps. And I thought, this is great, these gypsies love me. And I'm sitting there playing, and while I'm playing, I realized that I'm just a distraction while they're pickpocketing these tourists. It was a good trick. Of course, I didn't say anything. Also, I didn't stick with them too much. But, the automation thing, you know, Europe is way ahead of us on all of that. Because in a lot of ways, America, when you try to, analyze America against Europe and these countries over there, in some ways it's similar, but we're more similar to Latin or South America in a lot of ways, with just how big the country is, you know, and you know because the country's so big, we got the states that are divided up, all that type of shit. Those kind of technologies to hit the people and become mainstream, it's a slower process here, right? And one of the things, you know, about the pandemic that is obvious to me now is, you know, a lot of people realize that they could speed that up, you know, and, you know, I mean, I think they'd been trying to eliminate, you know, the risks and what's the word? What are they like? You know, externalizing cost, right? Once, how do we get these machines in here and these people out? And we've probably jumped ahead in that process in America a decade or more in just a couple of years. And I just remember, this was probably 2010. You'd go into a grocery store in Paris, and there was only one person working there, and everything else was self-checkout. And that was years before I saw it here. And then you think about the way that that's hitting in every single industry in America.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's so easy for people to be completely disconnected from other people now. You know, you don't have to interact. You know, and that's part of it. And if they don't have to pay people, they can maximize their profits. And then it becomes a very impersonal experience.
Soylent Green is coming, baby.
It's coming.
You seen that movie?
Yeah.
It's a good movie, man.
That's a good movie. It's a scary fucking movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the dystopian movies about the future, they undersold it. It's going to get real weird real soon. And because automation is not just going to apply to self-checkout, it's going to apply to everything. All that truck driving shit, that's all gone. That's going to be gone.
Right.
It's all going to be self-driving trucks. And they're going to be more efficient, less accidents, safer.
Just remember those big business people. Just remember those people. I know a whole lot of people who have relied on undocumented workers in this state for decades, voting against the very thing that they were using themselves this entire time.
Yep.
How are you going to rely on undocumented workers?
Right.
Yourself.
Right.
You ain't paying taxes on it. You're not, those people got no safety net or anything.
Right.
And then, here comes that's where it's going to happen. And, I'm not saying just as a negative thing. Like, I think you can already see in social media, I do think there's this exhaustion, even in the youth, with this monolith, with this thing.
The phones.
Yeah, and I've been saying that in the music business, like in country music, like Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Right.
And so it's like, it's 25 now, but I was thinking of it last year in 2024, because like 1974 in music was this crazy year, and like thinking about the Nashville system, the reason that Waylon Jennings is different than anybody else is because Waylon's the specific guy who breaks the stranglehold that the Nashville system has on its artists, that you can't use your band, you can't choose your studio, right? Like any of that. Like Waylon, you have to think how crazy that is. You couldn't use your band, and you couldn't even pick the studio. You couldn't produce. You didn't have creative control at all. Waylon's the guy that breaks that through that wall.
How did he do it?
I think a couple of ways. It's the yin and yang of Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. They were both on RCA. Willie was, at first, it's like Stapleton. Stapleton made his career as a songwriter early on, and that's what catapulted really for everything, that he's got going on now. There's a really great foundation there of a guy that's spent his whole life writing songs. And that's what Willie did, So Willie actually had success pretty early when he got to Nashville with, songs like Nightlife and Crazy and all that kind of stuff, and Baron Young and Patsy Cline, and these kinds of really big artists were cutting his songs pretty early on, right? But he was so weird to the establishment at the time. And so, kind of had this like philosophical thing to his writing that was going over the heads of the hillbilly deal. So he was really neglected as a, Willie Nelson records with him singing them. Waylon was more favored actually by like Chet Atkins and them. But like you'd be number one on the country charts in Nashville in the mid '60s and be in debt. Wow. That's what Waylon said. Waylon was like, man, I'd be number one all the time and I was fucking dead broke. He's like, man, they got you out there 7 nights a week and you're coming back and Lucky Muller's telling them that you owe him fucking 10 grand. It was a crazy system. Willie ends up leaving RCA. They're over him. He leaves RCA because Jerry Wexler is coming down in A&R and Texans out of this progressive Central Texas scene of that era that was so unique. And it happened then and just totally unique. The whole scene, everything here, the movement, the hippies and the cowboys, the where everybody could like here in the capital of Texas, you know, it was weird, but they were in the same rooms. We're still doing that here, you know, which is what I'm really proud of, you know, and glad that this town never turned into Nashville or LA or any of those towns. The best thing that ever happened to us is that the business didn't grow up like that.
Right.
I really do believe that because it's allowed our unique culture to continue to grow, even if it's, like I said, and sometimes it's good to be neglected by that machine.
For sure.
But so Willie leaves because Jerry Wexler pulls him out of there because RCA doesn't give a fuck about him anyway, right? He goes to Atlantic, sells 400,000 records. The boys up in New York don't even realize there's a country division. After Willie sells 400,000 records, which is a lot, right? They close the division. And that's when Willie lands at Columbia and he's having success. Well, they were starting to think that Waylon was past his prime too. But then Willie's blowing up on the other label. And Willie and Waylon got the same manager at the time, Neil Reshin. And what's Reshin doing? Reshin's leveraging it all. And so Waylon was about to leave RCA. And they doubled down and matched kind of Willie's deal because they didn't want to lose Waylon. And Waylon was like, I'm only staying, you know, if I got to be producing my own records. I got to be my band, and I got to pick the place that I'm playing, you know. And he manages to do that. So it's not just Waylon. I mean, it's Willie and Waylon together. That's why they're so tied together, you know, as these two guys that their careers just kept, you know, they just kept chasing each other kind of through the record books. You know what I mean? And you know, because you'd be in Nashville, it's still like this now, right? Like when I got signed to Nashville by 30 Tigers, it was purely because John Folk was my agent. And those guys, they'd tell you this themselves. They didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't get it. I was only put on the roster as a favor to my agent because they were having success with some other artists. Openly saying, I don't understand this. Right? Which at least they're being honest about, you know? But then what they would do that was so weird is like they'd give you, like if a major label would give you, you know, $500,000 on your deal, these guys would give you 50 grand, right? Like a tenth of that, you know, kind of on the independent, alt country, Americana circuit. But they would, what frustrated me about it, Joe, was that they're only giving you a tenth of money, but they're behaving like major labels with these like 2-year record cycles. That just kills an artist that's like that hasn't broken through. It just kills you. That's a 100% industry model because they can always get another horse. You know what I mean? They can always get another horse, and they can always, you know, they bet on 10 young guys, and one of those kind of amateur realists blows up. You know, they're good.
Right.
But you're never going to get a Waylon Jennings out of that model.
Right.
It's not going to, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen, you know?
And so how did Waylon get it so that he could do whatever he wanted?
Because Willie left, right? And because Willie left, and all of a sudden Waylon was really going to leave. That's all of a sudden.
That was his leverage.
They gave him everything. They gave him everything, and everything was changing. Everything was changing in Nashville. Because we're talking about, when I say like 1974 here, you got to think about it. You know, this is America in Vietnam. You know, this is America coming out of the 60s. You know, it's coming. Everything was, I feel like in a lot of ways what was happening is like the commercial culture was really starting to take off. You know what I mean? And then by the time we get to the 80s, you know, it's like this level of like pop culture and like American pop culture as a global export, you know, it's like, I guess maybe it's finally truly realized by the time Michael Jordan becomes the like most visible person on the planet, you know, kind of in the 80s and 90s. It's like Nashville was such an old system. It's kind of like in country music today, like one of the reasons everybody's sprinting into it, right, is because it's like one of the only places left where there's like loyalty, long-term loyalty in the fan base compared to like, you know, what happened with pop music in the last 20 years with pop and hip hop and all that. I mean, every one of those guys called me at one point and were like, I want to get into country music because you got loyal fans.
Wow.
All hip hop industry guys.
Wow.
All of them, every last one of them. And they've had success with a whole bunch of guys since then. I just didn't do it.
Well, country music has always been connected to authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you keep the loyal fans.
That's right.
Because people know that it's real.
That's
Whether
right.
it's Coulter Wall or whoever it is, it's authentic. You hear it and you go, this is not mass produced. This is not a bunch of executives sitting around looking at a focus group trying to figure out what's going to hit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, you mentioned Coulter. I wanted to say this. This is something I wanted to bring up with the Willie and Waylon thing, and I've been meaning to tell Coulter this, so I'll just tell him on your show. So we were both on the 30 Tigers roster for years. I met Coulter out at Willie's Ranch, goddamn, 10 years ago, right? And he's one of my favorites. I've always loved his songwriting. I mean, everything he puts out is great. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I love him.
Special, you know, really special.
Jamie turned me on to him when I heard Kate McCannon the first time.
Jamie Johnson?
No, Jamie, this Jamie.
Oh, this Jamie.
Yeah. He
What's up,
texted me and he's like, you're going to love this guy.
Yeah.
He sent me that song. I was like, holy shit. When I found out he was 21 when he made that song, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That sounds like a 60-year-old chain smoker.
Man, it bowled us all over. And you know what's funny, man? He's just getting better.
Yeah.
You know, he is. And
he's incredible.
here's something about that I told him I wanted to buy him a pickup truck as a gift for this. This is why. So he was on the roster. I was on the roster. And I started way down at the back of the line, right? And made a lot of records. And more of the labels are calling. And each record I'm putting out is doing better than the previous one. And there's more money and promotion going into each album. But a lot of outside guys are calling, you know. All the coastal labels are calling. New York and LA are all over me. Coulter ends up pulling up stakes and going to RCA. And he didn't just go to RCA, he took everything with him. He took the whole catalog over there. And I wasn't really aware of that. I didn't know what was going on. And RCA, they had hollered at me like through one of their A&R guys or whatever, but their big guys were never really interested in me out there, right? So they weren't one of the ones that was like really hot on me. But David Macias at 30 Tigers, very similar to what I'm saying is Coulter to me is kind of like Willie left RCA back in the day. And when he left, all of a sudden those guys, because he took everything with him, were about to lose me, and they fucking handed the keys over to me. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Coulter had left and just took everything. And so that ended up happening on a record cycle for me for an album called $10 Cowboy. And I was this close to going to, you know, the New York boys. And Macias comes in last minute and beats them all on the royalty rate, on the money, on everything, right? So I guess what I'm saying is Coulter's kind of my Willie Nelson. Appreciate you, bud. And you're doing good.
Yeah, he won't do podcasts. I tried to get him in.
Yeah, I know.
He sent me a bunch of records, sent me some cool shit, said sorry, but no.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's probably better.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to just be as authentic as possible. The dude spends time actually working on a ranch.
Well, that's what he loves to do.
Yeah.
You ever been up there to Saskatchewan?
No.
Man, it's in their blood.
Yeah?
That's what that land is. That's what they do up there.
Yeah.
I've been right through Saskatoon, even that big town there, you know, and I guess he's not too far down south from there, but like, those are ranching folks.
Yeah. Well, it's in his music, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that guy screams authenticity.
Yep, he does. And he grew up on, you know, Waylon and all that stuff, you know, and all the cowboy and all the, you know, he knows that cowboy music probably better than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that when you're talking about these hip hop artists and pop artists, that's what they feel. You know, all artists. I mean, even someone who's a pop artist, what do they want to be? They want something that resonates with people. They want something that really connects with people. You know, and if they think the vehicle to doing that is a hit pop song, they'll take that route.
That's right.
But then they'll hear something like Kate McCann and they're like, God damn, that's what I really want to do.
Yeah,
You know,
you can't duplicate that. The only way to do that is to live it.
Yeah, it's got to be real. It's got to be. You know, there's something, just like I was talking about with comedy, like they have to know that you're really thinking that. It's something in music too. They have to know that this is, and they like when you write your own shit too. You know that it's coming from someone's mind and their soul. It's coming from their life experience. It's who they are as a human being. This is their art. This is a true expression of their being, and that's what makes people loyal. That's what connects with people.
Those pop artists just want to take a picture standing next to authenticity.
Yeah, they do. Well, they want to be it, but they don't know how to get there, and they don't know how to do it, and they've never lived it, and they've been paying attention to all the polls and the focus groups, and they've been listening to the executives, and they've been taking the advances and driving the Mercedes. They're doing all the shit that leads you down the wrong path, and then one day you realize, like, fuck, it's not what I want, you know? It's interesting because it's like, you know, there's always going to be these examples of something that pops through that's real, that people gravitate towards, and then there's always going to be these people trying to capitalize on it and make money off of it and trying to figure out how to recreate it in an inauthentic way. And it's not possible. And that's the one thing that might save us from this AI shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because AI is going to create a bunch of really catchy songs, you know? But it's never going to create an Oliver Anthony song. It's never going to create Hard Times, you know? It's never going to create some of your shit. It's not going to. It's got to come from a real human being. And there's a thing that people are always going to want, you know? You're always going to want something that you know a real human being made, that there's something in it, you know? That's why this building's filled with art. You know, I love looking at something that somebody made, you know? It came from their soul. It came from whoever they are as a human. They laid it down, whether it's music or whether it's art, comedy, whatever it is. It's like that's coming from a human being, you know, and we're always going to want to be connected to that.
Yeah, I was looking at you saying that with your Joe Rogan Experience sign, and you telling me in the hallway that it's named for Hendrix.
Yeah, I stole it from Jimmy.
I don't know.
When we first started doing it.
The greats never reveal their sources.
No, I couldn't help it.
I'm just kidding.
I had to. Well, it's obvious. I had to give it up.
It wasn't obvious to me, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of slow.
Well, I had to give it up. It's like, but you know,
Austin, Texas, robust, it says right there.
I used to listen to Jimmy all the time on the way to the Comedy Store. That was like Jimmy and Led Zeppelin. I'd listen to a Whole Lot of Love, and If 6 Was 9. I'd listen to that all the time on the way down Laurel Canyon. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo.
Can you imagine how crazy that